بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد. There have been a few classes, a few sessions that we've had in which we have read some selections from the book كيف تحفظوا كيف تقرأوا كيف تفهموا, the book that is directly addressing the student of knowledge, the knowledge seeker, the disciple or disciplet. How do you memorize? How do you read? And how do you understand? كيف تحفظوا كيف تقرأوا كيف تفهم. How to read, how to memorize, how to understand, how to be a student of knowledge in a systematic and professional way, in a professional manner. The author of this book, Sheikh Abdul Aziz As-Sadhan, and he has another book, a larger work, which is called Ma'alim fi Tariqi Talab al-Ilm, which can be translated to mean or rendered into English to mean milestones in the road of seeking knowledge. A very beneficial book, a very thorough book, a precious book. Perhaps by Allah's permission we'll have time to read it, study it, translate it, or at least take some muqtatafat, some supplements from it, bid'Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as if the author summarized some of that book, condensed it, reformatted some of the things into this much smaller version. And this book, as we said, Ya Talib al-Ilm, O student of knowledge, how should you memorize? How can you read? How is it that you can get the proper understanding? The author of the book, he says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, As-salatu was-salam ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal-mursaleen, Nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. فإن مما هو معلوم أن طلب العلم والسعي في تحصيله من أشرف القربات ومن أرفع الدرجات وبفضل الله تعالى ثم بفضل العلم يعرف الإنسان كيف يعبد ربه عبادة صحيحة ويعرف كيف يأمر بالمعروف وكيف ينهى عن المنكر ويعرف كيف يتقي شر الشهوات والشبهات. بطلب العلم يكون الإنسان على بصيرة وعلى برهان وبه يحوز الإنسان فضلا كبيرا بالتوفيق في الدنيا وبالدرجات الرفيعة في الآخرة. Starting in the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, in the traditional manner of praising Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, the most gracious, asking Him to send prayers and salutations upon Muhammad, the best, the most noble, the supreme prophet and the supreme messenger, and upon his family members and his companions to proceed. He says that which is well known, seeking knowledge, striving and working hard to obtain it, is from the greatest acts of ibadah. It's from the best things to fulfill, or from the best things to fill the hours and days and years of your life with. By the permission of Allah, first and foremost, Allah's bounty, Allah's grace. He says, and then with the fadl of ilm, the grace of knowledge, the virtue of knowledge, the excellence of knowledge, a person will be able to know how to worship his Lord correctly. And he'll know how to enjoin the good and how to forbid the evil. And he'll also know how to avoid the lusts and how to avoid doubts. When a person seeks knowledge, he says, he can worship his Lord with clear insight. When a person seeks ilm, he has ilm, he can have a great amount of success in his life by Allah's permission, and all types of levels and stations in the hereafter. I.e., the author is beginning his book showing you some of the virtues of ilm that we have explained before, and we will continue to explain and mention because they need to be mentioned over and over again. This is considered to be fuel. This is coal for the engine of the locomotive. Is that you have to be constantly motivated and pushed. That what I'm doing, what I'm busying myself with, what I'm sacrificing for is a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. It's not a small, easy thing. When you go to school and you're thinking about graduating and it's time to graduate, where am I going to work, what I'm going to do to make a living, how am I going to make money, my wife, my children, this and that, and so on and so forth. The years out of my life, I'm living in a third world country in the Middle East. I'm hungry, I don't have food, I've lost weight, my hair is falling out, me and my wife are getting divorced, so on and so forth. You stop and you sit down and you ask yourself, what did you go to Egypt for? What are you seeking? What are you learning? What are you studying in Yemen? Is it some small, average thing? Or is it something which is beyond words, beyond the measure of ink on a piece of paper? That's ilm, knowledge of the deen. So you have to constantly be in a mode of being reminded of why you're making these sacrifices, why you're going through these hardships and these difficulties. And the people who have the other things of the dunya, my brother, he's back home in Houston, Texas. All of my sisters are back home in Toronto. They have degrees, they have cars, they have houses, they have successful worldly things, and I, the black sheep of the family with nothing. Okay, alhamdulillah. None of them have what you have, and that is true knowledge of Allah. None of them have possessed what Allah gave you, and that's to memorize His book, Fiqh fi Deen. When they want someone to make dua for them, they're going through a problem, someone's sick, who do you think they're going to go to? They're going to go to the sister with the degree, with the car, with this and with that, or with the righteous, pious, quote-unquote, black sheep of the family. They're going to ask her to make dua. When they have a question, they have a problem, they need help, they need counseling, they need advice, they're going to go to the religious people. They're going to go to those who have ilm. They're not going to go to the people of the dunya. So these are all from the virtues of seeking ilm that you have to constantly keep on your mind when you get depressed, when you become slow and sluggish, when you feel like you're becoming stagnated, when you feel like it's too much, or I'm too far from the goal, I've been doing this for too many years, I don't feel like I've achieved anything. You have to be reminded of the virtue and the beauty and the pure splendor of ilm. The author, he then says, وَإِنَّ مِمَّا يُتَفَعَلُ بِهِ ويتباشر به أن يرى المرء شبابا نشيطين يسعون جاهدين في تحصيل العلم يبذلون أوقاتهم وأموالهم ويتعبون أبدانهم في سبيل تحصيل العلم وهذه غاية شريفة ومنزلة حميدة ومنقبة جليلة بل إن ذلك يذكرنا بالرعيل الأول من سلفنا الصالح الذين قطعوا أقطارها شرقا وغربا شمالا وجنوبا في تحصيل العلم حتى بلغت همتهم أن يرحلوا شهرا من أجل حديث واحد ناهيك عن الرحلات المتقطعة دون ذلك وهذا الأمر أعني السعي والرحلة في طلب العلم قربة عظيمة وقد ألف أهل العلم في ذلك المؤلفات من أشهرها الرحلة في طلب الحديث للخطيب البغدادي رحمه الله تعالى وأما ما هو مبثوث في كتب التراجم وكتب أدب طلب العلم فهذا شيء كثير لا يستقصى فضلا عن أن يحصر. The author then says, from the things that make the people happy, and bi'idhnillahi ta'ala is a means of blessing, it's a means of glad tidings, okay, a means of good fortune, inshallah, what the people can look forward to and be happy regarding, or with regards to, is that we see the youth that are vigorous. We see the youth that are vigilant, the youth that are full of energy, working hard, striving, and sacrificing to get knowledge and to learn knowledge. He said this is a glad tidings. He says, and we see these youth spending their time, spending their wealth, and physically exhausting themselves to seek and to learn knowledge. This is something which is praiseworthy. This is something, he says, which is major. This is a major happening. All right? He says, rather, not only is it major, is it noble, is it lofty, he says, but this is something which reminds us of the first generation, the generation of the elite of the Salaf al-Salih. Those people who went from east and west, north and south to gain knowledge. Some of those righteous predecessors were so inspired by ilm and the search of ilm that they would travel for a month just to get one hadith. Do you understand what this means when we hear this narration? Abdullah ibn Unais traveling to Jabir, Sham, Medina from Sham to Medina, from do we know what this means? How far that distance is to get one hadith? Do you know what this means? So the concept, he says, of traveling 1 month for one hadith, let alone the smaller trips. All right, he says there are countless trips. He says, and this is a major act of ibadah. It's not something which is a pastime or a sport or a hobby. It's worship. Every time you travel somewhere, every hardship that you go through in the airport, every difficulty that you go through with money, with sickness, keep that on your mind, O student of knowledge in Medina. Keep that on your mind, akhi, that this hardship that you're going through is ibadah. How many hadiths tell us about thorns that a person steps on every step of the way? Every valley that you cross, it's a ajr. Allah says in the Quran Al-Kareem, Surah At-Tawbah, it's amal salih, righteous deeds. So don't forget that. The author, he says, and there are many of the ulama of the past who wrote books on this major phenomenon, this major happening, and that is the phenomenon of traveling to seek hadith, such as the Khatib al-Baghdadi, rahimahullah. He says in countless other stories and narrations that can be found in the books of Tarajim, the biographies of the narrators of hadith and the ulama, let alone the different books that are on seeking knowledge in general, and not specific on actual rihla. He says this is something which you can't even keep up with. It's too much, let alone to encompass it and to come across every single story and every narration. So just stop and think about that. The books that you read today, perhaps your struggles and your sacrifices will be something that someone will read about tomorrow. And don't say, well, my struggles are insignificant and I'm no one important, no one's going to read about my life story and how I sacrificed in Medina and in this country. Allahu Alam. Every generation, every single period of time, every century, it has a someone that's suitable for that, bidnillahi ta'ala. Obviously, it doesn't have to be like Jabir ibn Abdullah, but according to 2017, someone is going to come, Allah knows best, if the dunya continues for that long, in 2050, and read about your story. Someone may come, Allah Alam, how long this dunya will remain? It may be 3017, and someone will read about your story. Who knows? And they may be enlightened. Only Allah knows. He says, وَلَمَّا كان طلب العلم يحتاج إلى جهد وترتيب وضوابط كان طلبة العلم حريصين أن يسمعوا وأن يعلموا تلك الضوابط والروافد علها تكون بعد عون الله تعالى عونا لهم على تحصيل العلم. هكذا في المطبوع. وسأذكر في مقدمة كلامي أمورا مشتركة لطلب العلم سواء في حفظه أم في فهمه أم في قراءته، ثم أنتقل إلى التفصيل الميسر عن طريقة الحفظ والفهم والقراءة بحسب بضاعة المزجاة، فأنا حقيق بأن أسمع من غيري لا أن يسمع غيري مني. The author then concludes the introduction by saying, since seeking ilm, seeking knowledge, is something which is a means of sacrifice and struggle. It needs effort. It doesn't come easily and simply. You have to exert yourself and push yourself. You have to feel some type of pain, some type of struggle. It says, since seeking ilm needs tartib, it needs to be properly organized, and it needs dawabit, rules, regulations, guidelines, boundaries. In other words, the author is saying seeking knowledge needs several ingredients in order for it to come out as a successful dish. You want to bake a cake, you want to bake a pie, you can't just open up a bag of sugar and a bag of flour, okay, and a can of cherries and dump it in a pan and a stick of margarine and throw it in the oven for an hour and bring it out and say, Bismillah, bon appetit. It doesn't work like that. It's not that simple. He says, first and foremost, you need juhd, effort. So that means that you yourself have to learn. You have to know the recipe. You have to have the proper measurement, a cup, a tablespoon, a teaspoon, 3 cups. You have to have 5 pounds of sliced apples if you want to make apple pie. You can't just do it how you want to do it. And it doesn't just happen overnight. It takes juhd. He says effort. You have to actually slice the apples. You have to get the cherries. You have to open up the can. You have to roll the dough. You have to sweat a little bit. Wipe your forehead with your arm with a towel. You have to sweat. You have to feel your hands rolling the pen against the flour. Okay, you have to get hot and sweat in the kitchen with the oven roasting. When you open it up, your face has to get hot. It takes juhd, he says, effort. And then he says it needs tartib, it needs order. It doesn't happen in one phase. There's different phases, different levels. You cannot rush this. You cannot delay that. You cannot mix and jumble, mix and match. It has to be systematically done for it to be successful. The pie, this is perfection, and this is a means of necessity. I can do without this ingredient, but I can't do without that ingredient. This ingredient comes first, then that ingredient comes. You mix the eggs, you mix the flour, you mix the sugar first, then you do such and such. You don't just do it how you want to do it. He then says, wadawabit, and then there are rules, there are guidelines. You can't just put the pie in the oven and cut on the oven. The oven has to be preheated. It has to be hot from the beginning. You have to know how hot the oven is, 350, 450, 500. You're going to burn it. It's going to be soggy and mushy. It has to be done properly. It has to be done properly. You have to know the means of perfecting the crust. The crust is too pale. The crust is too dark. The crust is too salty. It's too sweet. It's not enough salt. It's dawabit. There's rules. If you want to have a good and fine slice of pie or cake, it doesn't work like that to just be done haphazardly. Now we can just stop right here and just look at ourselves, our lives, 2017. How many of us seek knowledge and we miss all three of these things? We don't have the necessary effort. We don't have the necessary organization, nor do we have the necessary rules and regulations. And then there are some of us who may have 2 out of 3 or 1 out of 3. And then only maybe a few of us who may get all 3. And those of us who may have all 3 or are blessed by Allah, how much of all 3 do we have? How far are we pushing it? How hard are we banging it with all 3? I'm exerting all of my efforts. I go to sleep at night and my book falls on my face. My iPad falls down on my face. I sit at my desk and I drool in my book because I go to sleep at my desk. I write until my fingers cringe. I read until my eyes become red. I sit in the halaqat, the different circles, with the ulama, with the mashayikh, with my friends, with my students, until the ball of my ankle becomes black. Until my foot falls asleep in the majlis and then comes out of sleep and then goes back to sleep. And I wake up, I walk out of the majlis and I'm limping because my foot is solid asleep from sitting for such a long time. Huh? How many of us are doing this? How many of us have food stains in our books because we eat and we read? And the list goes on. He says, with tartib, organization. How many of us, we start studying these major books from the get-go, from the beginning. This major classical work, 6-volume, 10-volume book from the beginning. We start speaking about issues that the ulama don't talk about, that some ulama are scared to investigate. We start getting into things beyond the proper time. We don't organize it properly. He then says, wadawabit, and rules. You don't need that book. That book is a good book by Imam al-Bukhari, but you don't need that. It's another book that's better. This is a Nawawi's book. You don't need that book of Nawawi. You can read this one. Okay? This is a better mukhtasar. This is a better sharh. This sheikh here in this city, he can teach you farad, the rules of inheritance. It's dawabit, it's rules. Don't abuse the sheikh. Don't sit too long. Don't keep harassing him. Don't teach it here. It's rules. How you do it. Where do you go? What university? What school? What book? It's rules. It's dawabit. If you want to have it successful, then you need these 3 major key components. I'm sure each and every one of us can look into ourselves and see how flawed our search is, let alone when we look at others. Okay? And it's very sad and it's very unfortunate, especially due to the fact that we live in Western countries, all right, in which the need for knowledge and ilm and fiqh and hadith and aqeedah, the need of usul, the need for ijtihad, the need for da'wah is more than the other countries which are far established Islamically. Moving forward, the author, he says, so therefore, he says, due to the fact that this is needed, he says, real students of knowledge, talabat al-ilm, He says they're always diligent to hear and to know those rules and to know those precise guidelines. By the permission of Allah, bidnillah, hopefully they will be a means of them actually being successful, of them actually soaking up knowledge in abundance and going back to their lands and squeezing the sponge out on their country, pouring and disseminating the knowledge. He then concludes the chapter by, or the introduction by saying, he says in the muqaddimah, all right, this is like a preface here. Obviously, the word muqaddimah, tamheed, and madkhal are all iftitahiyya. They're all synonymous in English. Interlog, introduction, preface, so on and so forth. So this is more like a preface, if that's what you want to say. And then he has the actual muqaddimah, actual introduction. He says, I want to mention many things which are general for the student of knowledge regarding memorization, with regards to understanding, and with regards to reading. Then, bid'nai ta'ala, I'll get into these points in detail, in a simple, easy way. The specific detailed way of memorizing, the specific detailed way of reading, and the specific detail or the specific details of understanding. Okay? He says, according to the best of my poor ability. He says, because me, myself, I need to hear this from someone else. No one needs to hear it from me. The author is being humble, okay, and respecting himself through humility, that he's in need of listening instead of someone listening to him. Khairan, inshallah. So that's the end of the preface. Then we have on page 7, the author, rahimahullah, he says, أمور مشتركة لا بد لطالب العلم منها في جميع طرق تحصيله للعلم. General things that the student of knowledge needs, okay, and these things which he'll need in all stages and levels of his talab, in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. الأمر الأول الدعاء أن يدعو الله دائما. فالدعاء بفضل الله تعالى يفتح ما كان مستغلقا ويقرب ما كان بعيدا. قال يفتح, the author, he says here, الأمر الأول الدعاء. He says, first and foremost is dua, is for you to always call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? And by the permission of Allah, the bounty of Allah, he says dua, he says يفتح أو يفتح ما كان. He says it will open up that which is locked and closed, and it will bring that which is far and remote. ويجمع ما كان مفرقا ويسهل ما كان عسيرا. And it will gather that which is scattered, and it will make easy that which is difficult. Allahu Akbar. These are all the benefits of dua. Dua opens things which are locked. Dua brings close that which is far. Dua wraps them up, gathers them, and collects them right in front of you. Bidnillahi ta'ala. والكلام عن الدعاء وشأنه أمر عني به أهل العلم. أفردوا فيه مصنفات مستقلة. والشاهد من المقال أن طالب العلم من أحوج الناس إلى الدعاء. وكلما كان العبد أكثر ضراعة وابتهالا مع فعل الأسباب فسيرى من ثمرة دعائه وتوفيق الله له ما لا يخطر على باله. Talking about dua, the virtue of dua, the ins and outs of dua, and its tremendous status is something that the scholars of Islam have written specific books on. What we want to talk about right now, or the main highlighting point he says here, is that the student of knowledge should have the greatest portion of dua. He should be someone who's always praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, along with performing the actual tangible means and reasons of achieving something. And when he does this, bidnillahi ta'ala, he will see the fruits of his dua. And he will see the success that Allah gives him that he can never ever imagine. Two things now. Number one is always making dua. Number two is actually physically attempting to implement what he asked Allah for. So, akhi, ukhti, do you make dua in your sujood? Do you make dua when you pray at night? Do you make dua in ruku'? Do you make dua in other places in which you can make dua? Do you make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last part of the tashahhud before you salam out? How often do you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, oh Allah, bless me in my studies, give me tawfiq, allow me to get accepted into this school, allow me to get accepted into this institute, allow me to memorize the Quran, allow me to be successful. You have to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بِيَدِهِ الْمُلْكِ. In Allah's hand is all of the dominion. He owns it all. He gives it to whom He wills. وَاللَّهُ ذُو الْفَضْلِ الْعَظِيمِ. Allah Azza wa Jal is the one who possesses this ever expansive, immeasurable, and explicable bounty. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. So ask yourselves first. Don't ask anyone else. Don't look at anyone else. Look in the mirror at yourself. How much dua do I make? How much of the Prophet's dua do I know with regards to asking Allah for certain things? The specific ad'iyah, nabawiyah, along with the general dua. Moving forward. Al-amr al-thani al-ikhlasu fil maqsad. He says here is to be sincere, to be pure for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your intention. لا تنتظر مدح المادحين ولا ثناء المثنين ولا إعجاب المعجبين أو المعجبين فهذه من أول المهالك والمعاصي في طريق كل عبادة وبالأخص طلب العلم لأنها عبادة متعدية إلى من يسمعها ويقرأها ومن تبلغه وليكن هدفك وقصدك مرضاة الله تعالى. وهنا أمر للشيطان فيه نصيب، وهو أن بعض طلبة العلم إذا عالج نيته مرارا قد يغلبه الشيطان فيصده عن طلب العلم والسعي في تحصيله. وقد بين أهل العلم أن هذا من أعظم تلبيس الشيطان على طالب العلم، فعليه أن يخلص النية لله ويجتهد في ذلك، ومهما لبس عليه الشيطان لا بد أن يستمر في جهاده، فذلك نوع من التعبد والمجاهدة في سبيل الله. Don't wait for the people to praise you and laud you. Don't wait for the people to be amazed at you. Wow, oh man, he's major. Did you see him? Did you hear him? MashaAllah, he's a student of knowledge. He's a talib al-ilm. He's in Medina. He studied in Damaj. He's this and he's that. She's this and she's that. Listen to her takhrij, her makharij, listen to her tajweed. Don't wait for this. Don't wait for this. Don't expect this. He says this is the first step of you being destroyed and wiped away. This is the first step of you being destroyed and wiped away, by expecting and waiting and being looking forward to the praise of the people. He says, and this is the very first sin in the step or the stages of seeking ilm. He says, of any ibadah, let alone seeking ilm. This is an act of ibadah that doesn't just stay in your house or your home. It doesn't just stay in you. It goes to other people. All right? It transpasses. It goes beyond. It doesn't just stay. It's not passive. It's aggressive. He says those who hear the knowledge, those who read the knowledge, those who the knowledge or whom the knowledge reaches. So you have to be sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you have to only intend and look after the good pleasure of Allah. That's what you want. And this is something that is a trick of shaitan, he says. The shaitan, when he says it comes to some students of knowledge, when they make dua, and they try to be sincere, they want to be sincere for Allah Azza wa Jal, the shaitan comes and he gets him to stop seeking knowledge. He gets him to quit, to give up, by saying, of course, you're not sincere, you're really doing it for the people's praise, you're doing it to show off, so on and so on and so forth. He says the people of knowledge have explained that this is a trick and a trap of shaitan, it's deception. And the student of knowledge is to make his intention sincere, work hard on that, and that's it. Khalas. Shaitan comes, shaitan whispers, he tries to throw a trick at you, don't just ignore it. And continue to fight, make jihad, fight shaitan. Get those whispers out of your head. Leave all of that alone, because that is ibadah, and that's fighting in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let's stop. And let's look at How many of us are afflicted with self-defeat, lack of confidence, poor self-esteem? Many of us are afraid of what people think about how we look. Oh, he's too this, he's too that. I can't give dawah. I can't learn. I'm of this race. I'm of this color. I'm from this background. I'm a woman. I'm a sister. How am I going to seek knowledge? Or people, when they do have a skill and they do have talent, teaching and learning, they say, I don't want to teach because the people, I'm just showing off. Or when a person, a khatib, he prepares for a khutbah, and he's given a major ability to speak about Allah's permission, says, I don't want to do the khutbah no more because I'm only preparing it for the people to be pleased. I'm only preparing it because the people, they come to my masjid just to hear my khutbah. And then shaitan at the end, he wins. The shaitan wins. So it's not about pleasing the people. It's not about spell binding the people. It's not about this. It's about having a standard of quality. It's about presenting a specific way. And it's about not being sloppy. This is from ihsan. It's about you doing your best, seeking knowledge and giving the best that you can. If the people like it, alhamdulillah, your intention is for Allah. I'll seek knowledge if it's just me in a room by myself. I seek knowledge if it's 500 people in a room. I give the class to 2 people, give the class to 2,000 people. It doesn't matter. You make your intention sincere. Don't worry about what the people think about you. Don't worry about how they're going to look at you, what they're going to say about you. Don't worry about these things. You must kill this insecurity that you have in your head, in your mind, that which we call a fire dragon. Fire dragon, it haunts you. It chases you down in your own mind. You have the ability to learn, to memorize, to be excellent, to be great, but you yourself defeat yourself. You shoot yourself in the foot because of lack of self-confidence or because of the shaitan coming to you and saying you're not sincere. Beware of this, student of knowledge. Be mindful of this. Only Allah knows how many brothers, how many colleagues, friends we've seen defeated and slayed by this problem. How many people, students, disciples, they have the ability to go far, to be strong. And they basically, in their own greatness and glory, or the chance towards greatness and glory because of this. Shaitan is your enemy. Inna shaytana lakum aduwwun fattakhiduhu aduwwa. Allah says he's an enemy to you, so take him as an enemy. إِنَّمَا يَدْعُو حِزْبَهُ لِيَكُونُوا مِنْ أَصْحَابِ السَّعِيرِ. Allah says about him, he only calls his friends to be from the people of the fire. So you yourself have to be mindful of shaitan and mindful of yourself and mindful of shaitan using your own nafs against you, playing these mind games. And this is why we always say that before you go to physical things, the student knowledge must have the proper mindset, the proper philosophy. Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is enough for the first lesson. Allah Azza wa Jal surely knows best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.